tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Will everyone at this event be vaccinated? Will we all be wearing masks?
A surge in Omicron in BC and the uncertainty it brings for holiday gatherings. Also,
we've done everything that's asked of us.
Will flights be canceled? It puts adventure in capital letters.
do you stay or do you go? COVID-weary Canadians hoping for a winter break weigh Ottawa's plea to stay home. And
plant care itself it's a way of mindfulness, it's a way of self-care.
cultivating culture. A Burnaby man reconnects to his Filipino roots through his plants.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, thanks for joining us. BC is facing a major spike in its daily COVID case counts. We recorded 753 new cases today. That's up from 169 from yesterday. And Omicron is a growing part of that increase. For more on the surge, let's bring in the CBC's Justin McElroy. Justin, things have escalated clearly. What do you make of this?
Yeah, if people could tell themselves that maybe the fifth wave wasn't here or Omicron wasn't a part of this province yesterday or the day before, a lot harder to do that now. If you take a look at the rolling average of new cases in British Columbia, look how steep that line is. We've seen a doubling of cases compared from this Thursday to last Thursday. It's a huge spike. It's faster than we've seen in the second, third, or fourth waves, and it's similar to what we're seeing in Quebec, in Ontario, in many European countries. It's a new phase that we're in right now, and certainly there's a lot of data coming through to see just how dangerous this will be compared to previous waves. But look at the testing sites today. They were packed, 90-minute waits in much of Vancouver to get a test. About 18,000 in total were done yesterday. That number is surely going to surge because we're seeing just how quickly this is moving through the population now in a way that we haven't seen for months and months.
How much of this is due to Omicron?
Well, we can't say for sure at this point. The province did release some numbers today showing that there were now over 140 cases that have been confirmed in the province. And here's where they are. Island Health, 71 of them, followed by Fraser Health, Coastal Health, then the Interior with 5, Northern Health with just 1. But the problem with those numbers is it takes a long time for the province to sequence exactly what these variants are. And given the speed that we've seen Omicron go through first South Africa and now a lot of countries in Europe, it's safe to say that this surge, which BC hadn't seen for months under Delta, has to come from somewhere. Omicron, definitely the most likely suspect.
Now, given all that, where is the epicenter of this surge here?
Well, at this point, it is the city of Vancouver, Vancouver Coastal Health to be specific. It was just a week ago, if you take a look at this chart, that Vancouver Coastal Health was only seeing 40, 50, 60 cases of COVID a day. More than 240 today, a quadrupling in just 1 week. You don't have to know lots of math to know that's extremely concerning. It's part of the reason why the provincial government just yesterday, they said that a rapid test strategy was coming on Tuesday, that public health orders were being considered. An emergency press conference just called an hour or so ago, a technical briefing for media before that. Usually that means more restrictions coming in, new guidelines that people have to follow. We don't know exactly what they will be yet in terms of what that means for gatherings or whether that means anything for non-essential travel from health region to health region. But it's pretty certain at this point that we're in a new phase of this pandemic, a new variant fully taking form, and the province will have to adjust.
And we'll find out more at that news conference tomorrow afternoon. Justin McElroy, thanks very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Now, more COVID news from Vancouver Coastal Health tonight. The health authority has now declared an outbreak at Lionsgate Hospital. 5 patients have tested positive for COVID at the 4 West ward in Lionsgate. 4 West has now been closed to new admissions and transfers, and all group activities are halted. They're not allowing visitors other than essential care or compassionate visits at the end of life. Meanwhile, in Fraser Health, an outbreak has been declared at Khalsa School, Old Yale Road, after 23 positive cases were found among staff and students there. The rise of the Omicron variant just days before the holidays is again leading to confusion and concern about how to stay safe. The province has yet to bring in any new restrictions. We're going to find out more tomorrow afternoon, if any. But as the CBC's Michelle Gassoub reports, community groups and experts say there are things you can do to reduce your risk of exposure over the holidays.
Rapid tests in BC can be hard to come by, but at High Street Mall in Abbotsford, the otherwise expensive tests are being handed out to everyone in line.
And within 15 minutes, you'll know if you have a positive or negative result.
There's even a demonstration of how to use them, an attempt by community organizers to keep case numbers down in the Fraser Health region, even as the Omicron variant surges.
We want to make sure that whether it's Omicron and these subsequent waves that are coming, that we are prepared, that we are empowering community and the public to understand and know how to deal with this challenge.
The province has yet to introduce any new public health measures in the wake of the new variant, but experts say there are ways to reduce the risk at personal gatherings, and some of the advice is tried and true.
If you need to be indoors, opening windows for ventilation and wearing masks, well-fitting masks whenever possible. So if you're eating or drinking, just taking them off to take a bite or a sip and putting them back on afterwards to reduce the shared air.
Smaller gatherings are safer than crowded ones, and Grayson says while it can be awkward, knowing the vaccination status of your guests can make a difference for everyone invited.
I would encourage folks to have non-judgmental conversations around their expectations when you're planning a gathering, to make sure everyone that you're planning to meet up with is on the same page regarding, will everyone at this event be vaccinated? Will we all be wearing masks?
Another holiday season of assessing risks and community organizers doing what they can to help prepare as British Columbians wait to hear whether the province will issue new public health orders. Michelle Kassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Meanwhile, it's déjà vu for many British Columbians who have had to reschedule travel plans during the pandemic. An advisory against international travel is once again in effect. Our John Hernandez reports on why some people might not be as willing to cancel their trips this time around.
The clock is ticking before Crystal Mason is supposed to get on a plane to Europe.
This is a trip that we had planned previously but had canceled due to the pandemic.
A trip to Germany to see family. Mason rescheduled for December when COVID-19 cases were dropping earlier this year. But now, with just days to go before takeoff, Canada's international travel advisory is back.
Just not again, mostly. Really?
The advisory issued yesterday is in response to growing global cases of the Omicron variant, which has arrived in BC. Travelers confronted with a dilemma once again. But nearly 2 years into the pandemic, patience for some is waning.
We've kind of gotten to the point where we've had so many variants, we've had so many travel advisories, we've had so much information thrown at us that we just don't know what is right and wrong anymore. We've done everything that's asked of us.
Mason says she's planning on making the trip and is prepared for any potential quarantines. Meanwhile, Kathleen Meldrum is on the fence about her own travel plans.
We booked it in November. It was like the 10th of November. So it was like 2 or 3 days before we heard the term Omicron.
She's booked a trip to Mexico in the new year with her partner and child, a much-needed vacation, but concerns about possibly getting stuck there enough to warrant a second guess.
Will flights be canceled? What does that mean? It puts adventure in capital letters.
The stance from government officials is unwavering. Don't go.
You can see that the situation is evolving. We can't be certain about what the situation will be 2 weeks from now, but it's unlikely that it'll be better than it is today. So my advice is that there will be other trips.
A tough pill to swallow for many who have watched the days and months pass by.
We don't get time with our kid, and she grows fast, right? So it's nice. It's good to make memories.
John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Concerns over Omicron are prompting organizers to park the Vancouver International Auto Show again for next year. This is the third year the show has been forced to hit the brakes over the threat of COVID. The event was planned to go ahead this March. Organizers hope to be back on track for 2023. In Whistler, the ski and snowboard season is in full swing, and for the second year in a row, it's taking place amid the pandemic. But this year's crowds may be a bit smaller than expected. Dramatically rising cases of the Omicron variant in Ontario and Quebec has Ottawa and provincial health officials warning people to reconsider their holiday plans to try to limit its spread. But some holiday makers in Whistler hope it actually doesn't come to that.
Don't add any more. You know, eventually people have to get back to life. And if they're choosing to be scared, then just stay home. You know, they don't have to go out, but let other people live their lives.
For the most part, most people are vaccinated. You don't allow the people that aren't vaccinated to travel, and let everybody else just carry on. It's been too long.
Just because of the vaccination rates here are so high, and obviously with the vaccine passports, you can't go into establishments unless you have been vaccinated, which I think a lot of other countries missed.
Still, others are concerned guests do not need a reservation to ski or ride, measures that were put into place last year to limit capacity and maintain physical distancing. Vaccine cards are also not needed to ride gondolas, as the province doesn't require proof of vaccination for outdoor activities, including ski hills. Some Whistler residents have petitioned to make vaccines mandatory for hillgoers. Farmers in flood-soaked Abbotsford are being praised by police for helping bust would-be thieves. Yesterday afternoon, a farmer living on Tolmie Road near Town Road in Abbotsford stopped two men trying to steal equipment from their property. The suspects ran away, leaving their previously stolen vehicle behind, but police working flood response in Sumas Prairie were quickly on the scene and picked up the pair with the help from the farmers. To sports now. Former Canucks captain Stan Smyl has been named Vice President of Hockey Operations for the team. The Canucks legend will work closely with the new team's president, Jim Rutherford, on hockey operations, including player personnel decisions. Smyl has worn many hats for the Canucks, including advisor, coach, and most recently interim GM after Jim Benning was fired. The Canucks have also hired a new assistant general manager. Derek Clancy joins the team after stops in Pittsburgh and Calgary. It's been closed for several years now, but the iconic St. Andrews Wesley United Church near Burrard Street in downtown Vancouver has reopened its doors. Seismic upgrades were a big reason why it was shut, but those aren't the only changes. Carolyn Chan went to see the newly decked-out chapel.
The church was built in 1933, and it was built in Depression-era time, and they had one thing planned, but due to not having enough funds, they had to make the changes in the plans. And some of those changes affected the structure of this church. We had problems with water seepage, so we had a lot of water coming in. We'd have buckets on the floors, the roof was leaking, the plaster was coming off the walls, so the congregation was very aware that something needed to be done.
So we had to basically demolish the church from the inside out, back to the original concrete structure, which allowed the engineers to then achieve a seismic upgrade, adding concrete to the walls and additional walls to strengthen the structure. And then we came along with various drywall and interior trades to recreate the interior, to overlay the interior back onto the walls and recreate what was there before. And seeing how it looks now, you just have to check out with the lights on now how it looks. It looks brand new. For me, that's the best piece. It's given the church another lease of life for another 100 years. There are some bits and pieces of clever seismic design that have gone in to make sure the building's safe in the event of an earthquake, but really it's the overall impression that it's the same religious space that it was previously.
One of the considerations was how can we best use our space, not only for our church, but also for the community at large. And so one of the things we did was put in chairs so that we can take them out and move them around and make the location look different. Also, we have better space now with the lighting and the sound that we've put in to be able to have concerts and events held here. And also we are a venue for other events. People who want to have dinners or fundraising events can use this space as well to be able to do that. So it is quite versatile now, and that was part of our considerations. This was our 100-year plan. And so we're coming to the end of what we had to do for work for the 100-year plan. And now we just need, as a congregation and as a community, to enjoy the building that we have.
Our meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. Joe, you predicted, you anticipated, forecasted, if you will, another storm. Great.
Yes, and it does seem to be panning out, Dan. Not set to arrive tonight, but this time tomorrow night, it'll be knocking on our doorstep. It's chilly out here, and this will set the stage for things to start off as snow across a huge swath of the South Coast. Let me take you to the temperatures right now. It's going to be a cold evening, dipping down below the freezing mark for Vancouver. 2 right now. We'll probably end up around a -2 tomorrow morning. But I do think we'll see some sunny breaks in there. We're sort of in between systems. It was a gorgeous sunset tonight. That next one, approaching from the Pacific. And it's going to end up sort of being a double centered low, meaning two centers moving onshore. And that's why the impacts are so widespread. These are all the current watches, warnings, special weather statements. For the north, places like Paris, Kitimat, Stewart, we have the first Arctic outflow warnings in place this season, minus 20 wind chills. It's more like minus 50 wind chills up towards Port St. John. And then that winter storm watch just issued earlier this evening for the sea to sky. That's for tomorrow night into Saturday for 10 to 20 centimeters of snow. So tomorrow will start off fairly calmly. We may see a few showers. It's really not until Friday overnight that we start to see that snow pile up. And again, early hours Saturday where that snow line will dip down. Dan, for Metro Vancouver, this could be a 5-centimeter story. I'll time it out and talk about bigger potential for bigger snow next week coming up.
Okay, thanks very much, Joe.
You're welcome.
The federal government says it has closed most commercial fisheries for Pacific herring on the West Coast. Fisheries Minister Joyce Murray says the closure was based on recently intensified risks to wild salmon. She says herring stocks are fragile and have to be protected. Harvesting of the fish will be reduced to a 10% rate in the Strait of Georgia with a maximum allowable total catch of just over 7,800 tons. Pacific herring are an important food source for salmon, seabirds, marine mammals, as you can see, and other fish. The new guidelines will not affect harvests by First Nations for food and ceremonial purposes. Quite the rescue in Surrey. A Mountie had to jump into a pool to save two people from drowning in a car. Take a look. RCMP responded to a call yesterday of this car crash near Glenwood Crescent and Sumac Place. The vehicle lost control, drove off the road, crashed through a fence, and ended up in that swimming pool. The officer jumped into the water to rescue two seniors trapped in that submerged car. The elderly couple were taken to hospital just to be safe. Thankfully, they have no obvious injuries. TransLink is installing Braille signage at every bus stop in its service area. Soon, 8,400 stops will be equipped with the tactile bus scheduling information for people who are blind or partially sighted. The Transit Authority says it's an important step forward in accessibility. TransLink will also be installing textured walking surfaces so customers can know their nearest stop.
So starting today, we're beginning the installation of Braille signage across the entire Metro Vancouver bus system. And by this time next year, we will be the first transit agency in Canada to install Braille signage system-wide.
Information will be written in both unified English Braille and raised tactile letters. Bus stop ID numbers, bus routes serving that stop, and TransLink's customer information phone number will also be on display. Installation ought to be done by the end of next year. Caring for plants can have a very therapeutic effect on people coping with pandemic isolation. But one foliage lover soon discovered many of his houseplants have a connection to his Filipino heritage. His pandemic hobby sparked a journey of rediscovering his culture. He's created an online community called Foliage Filipino, which helps Pinoy plant lovers unearth their roots. Have a look.
Plant care itself it's a way of mindfulness, it's a way of self-care, and being able to have plants means you're able to slow down and really check in with yourself. My name is Mako Macpugas. I am Filipino, and Foliage Filipino was initially my platform for understanding mental health, but what evolved out of that was something I had never expected. So when I first started Foliage Filipino, I realized that there is so much connection between plants and the houseplants that we have to the Filipino heritage. This is the Ficus elastica, also known as the rubber tree or rubber plant. And it's so common in a lot of households, but what a lot of people don't know is these are often endemic to the Philippines. So they'll take this sap and extract it and then boil it out and then apply it as a topical solution for anything that has been, an irritant or for rashes or any wounds like that. This is the sago palm. For any of the Filipinos out there, you're probably thinking dessert or a drink. This is actually one of where the plant is, the jelly for that is extracted. So when I think of this plant, I just think of like my parents or my mom and my sister would make dessert and use sago and do that. So this really takes me back to my childhood. Growing up wasn't always the easiest. I grew up in Mission. It's about an hour away out of Vancouver. There weren't a lot of people just like me, and quite frankly, I was probably the only Filipino in my grad class. There was no connection for me to have my heritage there. I was trying to find ways to assimilate, to find a different identity that I didn't want to show my heritage and how potentially I felt like a second-class citizen during that time. Rediscovering the love for my heritage as a Filipino was completely unexpected. I mean, like everyone else, in March of 2020, went into lockdown, and for many people, we went and turned to plants. Plants are so present in our culture that we often overlook it. For example, the barong Tagalog that I'm wearing right now, we don't realize that it's actually made from leaves of fruits that we eat on a daily basis. So the fibers that are used are actually either from the piña or the pineapple leaf or the abaca, the banana leaf plant. I feel honored to be Filipino. A lot of what we have as people is tied to nature, is tied to plants, and it's tied to something that could actually be a huge mechanism or a vehicle for mental health.
A massive surge in COVID cases in Quebec has that province reintroducing strict measures. The limits on crowds and the reaction is after this. Thank you for being with us on our commercial-free live stream tonight. Hello to everyone watching online. The pandemic has been challenging for many people, especially seniors, and particularly during the holidays. That's why one agency is partnering with retirement homes in the Greater Toronto area. As Dalia Ashri reports, it's to prepare and deliver Christmas gifts to seniors who may be feeling isolated this season.
Ghislaine McBain is getting ready to spread some holiday cheer.
I'm very happy to be doing this. It's a lot of fun.
McBain is a resident at this retirement home in Etobicoke. She's helping to prepare gift bags with goodies for seniors who might be feeling a little lonely this time of year.
And a lot of our gift recipients from the Be a Santa to a Senior program, oftentimes this is the only gift that they'll receive this Christmas.
The Be a Santa to a Senior program has been around locally for 14 years. It's run by Homestead, an organization based in Nebraska that provides care and support to seniors. This year, Christmas gifts prepared by retirement home residents like McBain will be delivered to seniors at Etobicoke General Hospital.
The isolation of seniors is being felt more than ever. So having a community rally together to show our seniors in our community that they're valued and appreciated is more important than ever.
A feeling McBain is familiar with.
Yes, I do understand being isolated, especially for the ones that can't go out or have difficulty walking, have walkers or wheelchairs, and especially the icy streets or sidewalks.
Which is why she wanted to give back. Because of COVID restrictions last year, it was a contactless delivery.
With more people vaccinated and us having less restrictions and working within the restrictions that still exist, we've been able to have a more personable program this year.
And seniors at the hospital get to request what they want from Santa.
The gift requests are really humble. So things like a warm blanket, a new pair of pajamas, hat, mitts, even toiletries like soap, shampoo, shaving cream. So even though they're small gifts, they make a huge impact on that older adult in our community.
It makes me feel warm inside, bringing joy to these people.
The 1,600 gifts will be distributed to the hospital by tomorrow. Dalia Ashri, CBC News, Toronto.
As Omicron spreads in almost every part of this country, provinces are facing difficult choices about how to slow the spread. In Quebec, with cases surging higher and higher, new public health restrictions were announced tonight. And in Ontario, with a mad scramble for booster doses underway, new modeling is giving us a clear picture of where that could be going. And the real worry, beyond skyrocketing infections, is the toll Omicron could take on hospitals and intensive care units. Now, as of today, 30,000 people of Canada have died from COVID-19. And the Omicron variant is showing up coast to coast. But there are new measures to combat it. Here's Katie Nicholson on what they mean for you.
A late game day decision in a bid to control COVID. No fans allowed.
We're starting to have a normal life back. We all did the vaccinate. I'm both vaccinated. And here we go again.
This on the same night Quebec's premier announced new restrictions.
If everyone does their part, we can get through this together. I'm counting on you all.
The 39 new measures include a return to work from home, places of worship, restaurants and bars back to 50% capacity, personal gatherings limited to 10, all to take effect Monday.
It's for a good cause, and let's see what's going to happen, man. But just before Christmas, come on.
Further east, Nova Scotia blew past its previous daily case record set last May, posting 287 cases. New Brunswick, too, set its own new single-day record of 177 cases.
The public is done with COVID, but COVID is not done with us.
You need some rapid tests? There you go. Have a good holiday.
Even St. Nick trying to keep people safe ahead of the holidays.
That's a rapid test.
In December, mall lineups this long are usually for the hot toy of the year. In Toronto, it's for rapid tests, slowly rolling out at select locations amid fears more measures could be coming.
I'm getting the rapid test because we're actually going to do Christmas a week early in case they lock down.
In Ottawa, more lines this time for booster shots.
We didn't get in there until 25 after 11 for a 9:40 appointment.
And then you had to wait inside for about another half hour before we got our shots.
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe also banking on boosters.
Effective Monday, December the 20th, we will be opening up that eligibility age to all of those 18 years and older.
While in Alberta, where the unvaccinated are newly allowed to mingle with others at private indoor parties, there are concerns that could fuel the spread.
With Christmas and loosening of restrictions, it's really the perfect storm to make January one of the worst months we've had.
And on the West Coast, even more lineups as officials handed out testing kits. A surge in cases, 753, 200 more than Wednesday, and a sharp uptick in confirmed Omicron cases.
Katie Nicholson in Toronto for us tonight. So what could the Omicron wave look like in the coming weeks? New modeling out of Ontario paints a dire picture. And as Johanna Reid shows us, signs to say without more measures, cases will quickly overwhelm the healthcare system.
Ontario's top COVID scientists called today for a circuit breaker and asked people to reduce their contacts by half.
This will likely be the hardest wave of the pandemic.
Ontario's science advisory table says cases are doubling every 2 days. Without changes, the province could see between 6,000 and 10,000 cases per day by New Year's.
Because of the speed with which it spreads, the cases that we see today, the cases that we see tomorrow, the cases we see on Sunday, will be the hospitalizations in 2 or 3 weeks from now.
They warn ICUs could get overloaded fast.
The numbers that we're expecting are so much higher than we saw during wave 3. And that's really a feature of how quickly this virus is spreading and how much more transmissible it is.
Lab research from Hong Kong, not yet peer-reviewed, tries to explain why it is so contagious, finding Omicron multiplies 70 times faster than the Delta variant in the bronchus, the passageway from the lungs, and may be slower to replicate in the lungs. The researchers suggest that may result in milder illness. But as Omicron spreads in the real world, the picture around its severity continues to develop. Despite early data from South Africa indicating a milder illness, the country is now seeing an increase in its hospitalizations and ICU numbers.
I hope you're going to survive. We'll do the best we can, okay?
Data from Denmark shows Omicron's hospitalization rate is similar to Delta, as the country struggles with its own surge. For now, researchers say with all the unknowns, provinces and territories need to do what they can to get ahead of this variant.
We need to prepare as much as possible in the time that we have to try and blunt this. The ability to stop this is likely gone. It's already here, it's already moving.
Tashana Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, if we look at the COVID situation across the country, cases have been rising nationwide. This is Canada's epidemic curve, and it's moving the wrong way. The 7-day rolling average of daily new cases is now at its highest since May. The big unknown, however, is what Omicron means for Canada's hospitals. For now, those numbers are relatively stable, but that's at least on a national level. We're well below what hospitals faced during the spring wave, and after a moderate uptick earlier this fall, the hospitals have been steadily treating about 1,500 patients. But before you factor in Omicron's potential impact, some of the country's healthcare systems already feel the strain. As Cameron McIntosh explains, Manitoba hospitals can barely find spots to put their severe cases.
Omicron is barely even in Manitoba right now, yet the system is teetering. ICUs are near full. Burnout has left staff shortages, meaning fewer beds.
I've been here since 8:30 this morning.
Seeing it coming this morning, a lineup in a minus 25 wind chill for walk-in vaccines.
And I don't want to wait till January or February to get my booster shot.
I think as soon as possible is a good way to go.
The modeling here is stark. Up to 1,000 new cases a day by January.
Once we see this spreading in the community, we are weeks away from it being our dominant strain.
Now that's almost double what Manitoba saw in the third wave, when it was one of the worst hit places in the country. Heather Stephenson was health minister then. She's premier now.
Please get vaccinated.
For now, she's resisting calls for more restrictions, as her health minister looks to manage the full ICU and a growing surgical backlog by trying to free up staff, moving non-critical patients around the province out of Winnipeg, at least 45 a week.
We have been able to surge up our capacity in ICU.
This is the best choice out of few or absolutely poor choices available. How did we get to this? That's the fundamental issue.
Predicaments others worry will play out elsewhere. In Quebec, where the healthcare system is short thousands of workers, modeling is also worrying.
We're sure that there's going to be an increase in the hospital beds needs.
While all across the country, frontline workers complain of burnout.
The nurses are just done. They are absolutely finished.
Our healthcare system is in critical condition.
Now, in the case of Manitoba specifically, a request has been made of the federal government. 30 ICU nurses, likely military. The federal government says it's assessing it along with the needs of others. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
It broiled the province for days, an unprecedented heat dome that killed hundreds of people here in BC. Why it is the top weather story of the year in Canada after this.
Good evening. My name is Kenneth Capel. I'm the BC Regional Representative of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And I'm very happy this evening to welcome you to station CBUT. This station is another step in the service to the citizens of British Columbia. For many years you have been having service from our station CBU. And now we are bringing you television via this new station. I would like to tell you something about the staff of our station. We're very happy to have heading it up Peter McDonald.
Ladies and gentlemen, as Director of Television for Vancouver, I'm particularly happy tonight to be able to talk to you on Channel 2, the frequency assigned to the CBC's television station in Vancouver, CBUT. My job for these past few months has been to gather together the multitude of people, technicians, program people, producers, script assistants, etc., whose job it will be to bring you the sort of television we hope you'll enjoy over this channel.
The first newscast on CBUT was anchored by Gordon Ingalls, and as you'll see, the presentation of news 31 years ago was vastly different from what is seen now, with all the technological advances since that time.
Vancouver is having its first look at one of the world's most modern commercial aircraft, the Vickers Viscount. The Viscount is a British-built aircraft powered by 4 propeller turbine engines. They are similar in construction to a jet engine, but utilize the thrust to drive a turbine which turns the propellers instead of using the thrust directly through the tailpipe as in a jet. It's much quieter and produces less vibration than a conventional aircraft. The president of TCA, Gordon McGregor, arrives in Vancouver aboard the new plane and is met by Lieutenant Governor-designate Alec Ross. TCA Captain Art Rankin is pilot for the flight. The Viscounts will be in regular service between Vancouver and the Prairies in November. And now turning to the weather, if we can find it. Cloudy with a few sunny periods over the southern British Columbia coast tomorrow. Little change in temperature. The predicted overnight low and high temperatures tomorrow: Vancouver 42 and 62, Abbotsford and Nanaimo 38 and 65, Victoria 45 and 60. And that winds up another 6:45 news and newsreel from our television studios in Vancouver. Another edition tomorrow night. Good night.
That film shot on the day that CBC television took to the airwaves for the first time 31 years ago today.
Here are some of the stories we're following for you tonight on CBC Vancouver News. BC's COVID numbers have jumped again, fueled in part by the Omicron variant. Officials announced 753 new cases and 3 more deaths today. The province notes 135 cases of Omicron have been found here. That's up from 44 on Tuesday. The surge has the government asking people to reconsider holiday social gatherings and travel, and they're holding an unscheduled news conference tomorrow afternoon. A Surrey RCMP officer may want to add lifeguard to his credits after rescuing 2 people from this vehicle that crashed into a swimming pool. The elderly couple was stuck inside as the car began to sink. The Mountie managed to open the door while it was still underwater and rescue the pair. And 2 men have been charged with theft in connection with stolen equipment from a flood-ravaged farm on the Sumas Prairie in Abbotsford. Farmers helped police find the men who ran off after they responded. Environment Canada has now released its top 10 weather stories of 2021. The agency's senior climatologist, Dave Phillips, put that list together. He says it's been an extraordinary year for extreme weather in Canada.
It was a year of years for weather in Canada, the wildest I've ever seen. And I've just ran out of superlatives trying to describe this kind of a year.
And Phillips has named the heat dome that covered BC in late June as the country's #1 weather story. That 2-week-long event led to hundreds of temperature records, including in now destroyed Lytton, which set the hottest temperature ever in Canada at just under 50 degrees Celsius. CBC meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us again. Jo, why don't you take us through the first few weather stories on the list this year?
Yes, and Dan, I would have to agree with Phillips. Of course, I think the rest of the country as well. #1, heat dome, and #2, the flooding. You know, David Phillips has been putting out these lists for 26 years. I've been reporting on them for about 15, and I'd have to agree with him that I've never seen a year like this. Of course, it all sort of kicked off for us on the West Coast with that heat dome breaking thousands of daily high temperature records and kicking off yet another historic wildfire season. You know, the 600 deaths, obviously top of mind, but I think for many British Columbians, this was the hottest that we've ever felt it here. And for many of us, the first time we really felt unsafe in our own homes as overnight temperatures stayed up around 35 degrees. Of course, this set off the wildfire season, those hot and dry conditions. And then now you're seeing pictures, of course, of the floods that continue to dominate our news coverage, and communities still trying to pick up the pieces. And we're still, cut off on many of our major routes. There's a look at the wildfire season. Of course, it forced thousands from its home. And the only surprise for me on those top two was that I thought maybe Phillips would put them together because of the relentless nature of the extreme weather events here on the West Coast. I know, Dan, the rest of the country, number 3, really experiencing drought. The prairies seeing the worst drought in 75 years, and that extended all the way to Newfoundland.
Brutal year. Were there any weather stories on the list that surprised you or thought ought to be on the list that weren't included?
Philip said it. It was a year that there have never been so many. You had to decide what wouldn't make it on. And I only thought that maybe at the same time we were dealing with, washed out roads. We didn't see that East Coast storm where Cape Breton and southwestern Newfoundland also experienced washouts. That one didn't make it to the list. But as I said, there were just too many to choose from. Take a listen to Philip, though, when it comes to what this year might signify.
And before this, it was an Arctic issue. It was a slow motion kind of change, subtle and relentless, but gradual for our northern friends and colleagues and Canadians in the north. And northerners were witnessing it every day. But I think what southerners saw this year is that they witnessed it firsthand out their windows and in their backyards and their communities.
Yeah, truly, from coast to coast to coast, the topic of climate change sort of infusing the fingerprint stamped on all of these events was a bigger conversation than it ever has been, Dan.
Absolutely. Jill, thanks so much for your perspective. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
They are big boxes and very useful at that. The big problem, though, is there's simply not enough of them. The shipping container crisis and the global supply shortage. That's next. And at 6:40, a live look at Penticton, where the lake, kind of hard to tell if it's frozen or not, but there's snow on the ground. A winter storm watch has been issued for the sea to sky. We might see some white stuff in Metro Vancouver. Johanna will have her full forecast after this. She's back. Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now with the forecast. Indoors, I should say. Was getting a bit cool there today, wasn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, Dan, temperatures are dropping rapidly. And in fact, that's where I wanted to start off now. I would have been indoors a lot sooner if I was up in Fort Nelson. Take a look at the current temperatures tonight. These are just temperatures minus 30 right now. And you can see those purple temperatures. That's the Arctic air mass. It's slowly filtering across central and northern BC over the next couple of days. Minus 21 in Prince George. And wind chills alone will be close to minus 50 in Fort St. John. I want to take you through the bigger weather pattern. A lot of buzz now about snow and the possibility of a white Christmas. Keep an eye on those purple temperatures. That's the Arctic air mass. I'm taking you through Thursday and Friday. This weekend will be a little chilly. We get a little bit of a bump up as we get that Friday, Saturday storm. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, look at that Arctic air descending down towards the south coast. So the setup is right. All we need are a couple Pacific storm systems, and the long-range models are indicating we've got a good shot of seeing some snow in the days leading up to Christmas. First, we have to get through the snow leading up to Saturday morning. Here's a snapshot. The whites and the light blues, sort of those traced to 5 centimeters. That's our best shot for Metro Vancouver. But if you're North Burnaby, the Tri-Cities, Coquitlam, North Van, a good shot of seeing 5+ centimeters Saturday morning. And this is yet another big snowfall event for the mountains and the passes, and this will cross over to the Rockies. We've got 10 to 20 centimeters in place for the interior as that cold air descends. This is actually a double-barreled low, which is why the impacts are so widespread. We got a second little low forming off our coast tomorrow night. Sunshine for the interior until that system gets to you tomorrow night. It's crisp but beautiful. Williams Lake down through the southern interior and out towards the Kootenays. Cold tomorrow, but lots of sunshine, increasing clouds as that system moves in on the west coast. And Victoria, Vancouver will start the day off possibly with some sunshine, some scattered showers in the afternoon. But again, it's overnight, sort of this time tomorrow, that we'll start to see the first bands of the system. It'll make for a wet, windy, and possibly snowy Saturday. Now, temperatures are warming up on Saturday. So whatever snow you do get early Saturday for Metro Vancouver, likely melting with that +8. And then that +8, the warmest we're going to see it through to well, at least Christmas Day. So I will be watching closely, Dan.
If you could keep an eye on it, we'd really appreciate it.
I might find some time.
Okay.
Yeah. You're welcome.
As the global economy rebounds from the coronavirus pandemic, inflation is spiking across the world. A key reason for the price increases is supply chain bottlenecks that make it hard for manufacturers and distributors to meet consumer demand. And there's a critical link in the supply chain that's become a major problem: shipping containers. As the CBC's Zach Gowdy explains, there just aren't enough of them, and it's a problem that won't be fixed anytime soon.
What does your couch have in common with your car? And probably with your clothes. And definitely with the device you're watching this on right now. Before they were yours, they all took a ride in one of these. A shipping container is a big metal box, nothing fancy, but the modern world is built on them.
All goods globally all travel by shipping containers. It's a web of supply and demand around the globe, and these shipping containers go to one spot that has demand, and then that gets filled with supply that needs to go to another place with demand.
But that web of supply and demand is being stretched and broken. Now these big metal boxes are at the center of a global crisis hitting large corporations and small family-run furniture stores.
I would have never thought to see some of these huge delays and price increases because of something like these containers. I've seen so many of them come into the harbor here on the boats, and you never think there's a shortage.
That shortage is yet another consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic, a crisis within a crisis. But even if the pandemic ended tomorrow, the problems with shipping containers wouldn't end with it.
Usually when prices go up, we don't tend to see them go down.
From what we're seeing, it could take a couple years before we even get back to any normalcy.
One company that knows what normal used to look like is P.F. Collins, founded in 1921 by Patrick Francis Collins, a customs broker in St. John's. 100 years later, it's still going strong. The business is built on moving goods from point A to point B, often in a shipping container.
Those containers would be loaded at manufacturing facility in China, for example, would get delivered to the port. Generally, those vessels are bound for the west coast of North America. That could be Vancouver, it could be even Los Angeles. That's just one path. It can go the other way as well. They can go through the Suez Canal and come into Halifax or St. John's or Argentia, these major ports on the east coast of Canada as well. So there's lots of different routes, and they're all feeling strain right now.
That voyage along the global supply chain has gotten a lot more expensive. In October 2020, it cost about $3,800 to ship a container from China to the west coast of North America. By October of this year, the price had risen to more than $17,000. It's sitting at more than $14,000 today. Why the price hike? The simple reason is COVID. Look a little closer, and there are lots of reasons, but they all fit into one metal box.
There's just been a general increase in demand on these containers, and they haven't been able to fulfill them with the supply. That's just one piece of the puzzle as well.
As rich countries opened up, demand for goods went up too. That drove up demand for shipping containers and for space on the ships those containers travel in, and for space at the ports where the ships are unloaded. Suddenly, the whole system was backed up.
There's congestion in the Port of Vancouver, the Port of Los Angeles, and those ports generally handle over half the goods that come into those countries.
Because the ports are backed up, they can't load the empty containers back onto the ships. So the containers aren't getting back to the beginning of the supply chain, pushing demand for the containers that remain even higher. At the end of this strained supply chain is a place like Osmond's Furniture, another family-owned business with a long history in St. John's. But Michael Osmond's grandfather never saw anything like this.
I wake up almost every day, every week to a new price list. A new notice from the suppliers as well, whether it be, the containers have gone up, so we have to implement this much, and we regrettably have to pass this along. Just last month, our biggest upholstery manufacturer put a pretty sizable surcharge percentage onto the cost of everything being produced after a specific date. This surcharge was directly linked to textile that comes in giant rolls by container.
Of course, the fabric is just one part of a couch. Every other part travels by container too.
There's the frame, there's the spring components, there's the little tiny plastic clips that attach the spring to the frames, and although it's a little tiny plastic clip, if that tiny plastic clip is delayed, then the product in Canada is going to be delayed the exact same amount of time or more.
It's a microcosm of our interconnected world. A plastic clip in China affects the price of a couch in St. John's. The delays and price increases get passed on at every point in between until it ends up with you, waiting longer and paying more. Companies like Osmond's and P.F. Collins do what they can to take the hits by absorbing some costs, by dropping some parts of their business altogether. But the problems are stacking up, one shipping container at a time. Zach Gowdy, CBC News, St. John's.
Diversifying the fastest sport on ice, getting Canadian newcomers into speed skating. We'll take you to the ice next.
Dream came about when I went to Texas and some of these progressive schools, and I saw how kids were engaged in their learning, and that is a problem I think in our area, in the New Brunswick education system in some aspects, and we really are pushing for PBL learning, project-based learning, and that's what this is. It's an ability for children to get their hands dirty, to do stuff and learn by doing. And complementing this, we also built a kitchen so that the children can take this produce and actually do stuff with it so that we can start feeding our own population and sharing what we grow and what we've learned through this.
We make food for other classes or sometimes just for ourselves. We will use fresh foods from the garden, and well, that's basically it, but it's fun to cook and we get to cook anything we really want, but next week we're actually making a meal. I actually love cooking. I've always loved to do it. It's fun to do, and you learn more about it too, so it's a nice life skill to learn.
Well, in this learning model, we as teachers are actually vertically planning, which means all of my teachers sit together at the table, the science, the social studies, the math and language arts teachers, and we create a learning outcomes that we want them to achieve. So in this, they had to learn what plants can grow. So we don't tell them these answers. They have to learn through discovery, and they're taking data, and they say that the plants grew 2 centimeters in the warm temperatures, less in the colder temperatures, and from that they're discovering what is happening.
I found out that most vegetables that you can grow are lettuces and herbs, and also like things like carrots, parsnip, and potatoes, so things that grow underground, because in our greenhouse, it's usually always above 2 degrees, we try to say. So once it hits 10 degrees, our greenhouse pushes the air into the ground, and once it hits 1 or 2, it pushes it all back up, so it keeps it warm. And so our greenhouse ground is quite warm, so we can still grow veggies that are in the ground. Food security is very important because I know just around here and around our community, there's a lot of food insecurity, and we are trying to solve that, and this is helping with that problem.
It's taught me how to live a life that's not like in the city. It's taught me how to grow my own plants and take care of them.
And how much fun is it coming to school and doing this?
A lot.
Well, it all comes down to engagement. And if kids are doing and part of the process, everybody can be successful. And that's what we want in our education model. And our vision is about making every child learn to the best of their ability. And we're not all going to be the best at everything, but everybody can be great at something in this school. And that's our driving force.
Some newcomers to this country have found a cool way to ease the transition to life in Canada. As Jason Warwick shows us, it involves a little determination and a whole lot of ice.
Adam, Suja, and Rihanna Al-Krassad head out onto the ice. It's their first season with Saskatoon's Lions Speed Skating Club. This ice, the winter coats, mitts, skates, all new experiences. Back in July, their family left their home in Jordan in the Middle East and moved to Saskatchewan. Their parents say speed skating has made the transition a lot easier.
The English is not our first language, and the sporting and skating is one of the tools that we use it to encourage them to speak English and know the people here.
The club is happy to have them.
It is so awesome seeing the family and the kids on the ice every week. They are having so much fun on the ice, and it's super cool seeing them learn how to skate.
This year, the club also welcomed new families from Asia, Africa, and South America. The club says that inclusion and diversity are top priorities. They say it will help boost club numbers, but it's also the right thing to do.
Everybody should be included everywhere. Everybody should be able to have a great time, and we're all better because of the inclusion.
This fall, the club tried out a new buddy system for parents. They helped each other with equipment, with the rules, and with rides. And thanks to a big donation from the estate of Johnny Sands, a former Olympic speed skater from Saskatoon, the club now has dozens of new pairs of skates for any recruits. There are plans for formal partnerships with newcomer and Indigenous groups.
And the people in the clubs and their and the coach, I want to say thank you because you support me and my family in everything.
A great way to get some exercise, learn English, and even make some friends in their new city. Jason Warwick, CBC News, Saskatoon.
And we're almost at the end of our Brightest block contest. Our city reporter Justin McElroy and the team at CBC Radio's The Early Edition are determined to answer what's the jolliest street on the Lower Mainland. Take a look. Tonight we go to Santa Claus Lane in Langley. The lights first went up last year because the homeowners wanted to do something for the kids who'd been inside because of COVID. They say they wanted to bring people together in a safe way and spread some joy. The Early Edition has been profiling Brightest block entrants throughout the week. Langley, Surrey, Ladner, and Vancouver are all in the mix, and the winner will be announced tomorrow. Thank you for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, the free app. It's also on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and our website, cbc.ca/BC. I will be back at 11 o'clock tonight with your late local news and all the latest headlines right after the National. Thanks for joining us.